I recently came across a post discussing a study that said younger and middle-aged men are perceived less favorably than women in the same age group. There was a decent discussion on how men struggle socially until one person said, "As a father of 3 daughters, this victim complex needs to stop. I have noticed this pattern in real life. Some fathers I know seem unusually aggressive toward their daughters' male friends or boyfriends and often mention how women have it harder in every context, even when it doesn't quite fit. Is this something others have noticed too? What could be the reasons for this?" Story 1. In my father's case, it was definitely projection. He treated women poorly when he was young and assumes every other man is the same way. It is stressful for him but also comforting in a strange way. It makes him feel like his past misdeeds were just male nature at work. Story 2. It's the same reason why almost all mammals and birds with children become aggressive towards potential predators. No big secret here, just another reminder that humans are not all that special. Story 3. I am a man with a teenage daughter and spend time around many other men with teenage daughters. I have never seen what you are describing outside of Hollywood movies and shows. If anything, most men I know with daughters tend to be more empathetic and compassionate. Story 4. I have 3 daughters and was never aggressive with their boyfriends or husbands. I am not an aggressive person by nature. I am protective of them, and if anyone hurt them, I would become aggressive. Otherwise, they are going to do what they want, and trying to stop them would only hurt our relationship. Story 5. It is rare for men to see other men as the threat that women see men as. However, men do not gossip and avoid as a defense mechanism. Instead, they become aggressive and physically threatening. Story 6. Recognizing that women face hardships does not mean being overly aggressive. Disclaimer: yes, I have a daughter. She is not yet of dating age, so I do not know how it will go with her boyfriends. Let us see. I suppose her mother would give me a head start in being protective. Story 7. Many men do not develop empathy or respect for women until they have a daughter, and then they overcorrect. Story 8. I recently came across a post discussing an incident involving a father who appeared unusually aggressive. Instead of vague descriptions like "some dads," it is important to describe exactly what happened, when it happened, and where it happened. Story 9. Because those men are aware of the real dangers women face in society, they are overly protective. It is not easy to let your guard down when the safety of someone you love is at risk. Story 10. I have noticed that fathers who act like this with their daughters were all complete womanizers when they were younger. Since they behave that way, they assume that all young men act the same. It is projection. They were horrible young men toward young women, and now that they have a vested interest in their daughters, they assume all young men are exactly like them. Story 11. Maybe seeing how things are harder for their daughters than they were for them makes parents more compassionate toward female struggles and more protective of their daughters and other women. Story 12. I am a daddy's girl since I am the only daughter out of 3 children. Growing up, I did not see any signs of aggression from my father, knowing most of my friends were boys. My childhood best friend is also a boy, now married to one of my rare girlfriends whom I introduced him to. Both my mother and I trusted him fully when we were young, to the point that they would not allow me to go out unless he was with me. I have been hurt by many boys in the past, but the only time I saw him show signs of aggression was when he found out my ex cheated on me. He hurt me physically, and my father wanted to beat him up, but fortunately, he was able to restrain himself. Clearly, he never laid a finger on me or my brothers while we were growing up. My fiancé was even surprised when he met my father because he expected him to be overprotective, but it was the opposite. We recently took a trip together, just him, me, and my fiancé, and he insisted on bringing my fiancé with us. He really treats him like his real son, knowing my fiancé does not have a father figure. I guess we are just lucky to have a dad like him. Story 13. The main reason is that a significant number of men will beat, rape, and abuse women. A caring father understands this. It does not matter if it is only a few men. It only takes one wrong person to harm a child. If you are a boy and no one protects you when you enter a relationship, it is because most people assume that 99.9% of women do not have immense physical power over you through rape or physical abuse, which can be untrue. Story 14. I believe it has a lot to do with subconscious tribal survival instincts. It is the same reason that women who have children suddenly become hyper-maternal, often giving advice to total strangers as if they were those strangers' mothers. They often then apologize as they catch themselves being a mother. I do not think we give our primal instincts enough credit in this modern era. If you pay attention to ancient human culture, all the answers are there. Overprotective fathers and very motherly mothers all collaborated to help their tribes survive. They did not just raise and protect their own. They protected the tribe's young from all manner of external threats, and those young eventually aged and reproduced. Male aggression has a bad reputation in modern society, but there was a time in history when aggression was vital to our survival, to the tribe's survival. Story 15. Probably instinctual. Men know what men are capable of, so we want to protect our females from other men. Story 16. I will be completely honest in saying I have no discernible idea what question is being asked at all. Story 17. This does not happen often in real life, but when it does, it is often a reflection of a father who, underneath, harbors a desire to take from his child their potential to fuel his own. The child has their experience from a romantic perspective stolen in order to fuel the father's potential to be a protector when it is not really necessary. Also, some men have inappropriate desires toward their own daughters. Story 18. I've been rude to the difficult people, but I've also been kind to the kids who are nice to her and don't cause her to have emotional breakdowns by being rude or controlling. For the most part, the love life of a teenager is private. As a single parent, accepting the things I can't control and being rewarded with communication is a win. She's going to date, and I don't have to like them. I just need to call out dishonesty when I see it. Story 19. As a father of 3 daughters, protecting them is important, but being a good example of a man for them is just as important. If someone makes one of my girls cry, I will make them sob like a toddler. Until then, you have the same respect for me that anyone else does. This pattern you observe is mostly online bluster. Every father wants to protect his daughters, but most just want them to be happy. Story 20. This happened with every one of my ex-partner's fathers. They act in a way that is very off-putting and usually makes me feel uncomfortable being at my girlfriend's house. Story 21. My sister has shown good judgment in choosing her boyfriend, but if he messes with her, he will get the fist. Story 22. I definitely see the struggles of my daughters. I have 2. But it is not like teenage boys are not facing their own challenges too. I try to be there for anyone who needs me, including my daughters and their friends. That said, I am constantly vigilant about their safety. Story 23. I have a teenage daughter. I am not aggressive towards other men. However, my father is in prison on child assault charges, so I am very cautious about who she spends time with and where she goes. Story 24. Probably anecdotal. In that 3 daughters comment, it is only 1 out of thousands of views and replies. There are men with 3 daughters who viewed the comment and feel the exact opposite but did not respond, so it is not a good sample of the population. You also have to consider the person's biases. If someone believes women are victims, they have an interest in shutting down any discussion of men as victims because they have been overwhelmingly promoting the women are victims, men are the perpetrators narrative. Any development of a narrative that men are also victimized at a high rate by women undermines their narrative. That is why they oppose domestic abuse centers catered to men and actively suppress any sentiment developing for men. If it is a daughter's boyfriend or male friend, it is just that he would rather that person not be in his descendants' gene pool. Nothing strange about it. Story 25. Most men I know with daughters are very protective about their little girls getting a boyfriend. They seem to forget that they once dated someone's daughter and even had a baby with one. Story 26. At a certain point, you think about how you and your bodies thought about and treated women and realize people will do the same to your daughter. The patriarchy dictates that women are helpless and innocent, whereas men are aggressive and sexual. Mothers also protect their sons, but that too is influenced by the patriarchy. Rarely do mothers think, "This woman is a physical harm to my son," even when the woman could theoretically be a physical danger because the patriarchy creates a narrative of women as physically weak. Story 27. I rib my daughter about her boyfriends and, at the same time, make sure she knows that if they ever need a ride or support in any way, I will always be there for her. However, I completely distrust any male outside her age group who shows unusual interest in her. I have also warned strangers with my eyes that I will hurt them if they continue ogling my preteen child. I know that men idolizing Tate are generally less socialized and have a higher chance of being predators, so I distrust them. Story 28. I have two very beautiful daughters. Of course, I am protective. Every guy I come into contact with either says something inappropriate or tries to hit on them. I am nice to their boyfriends. They chose that attention. If their boyfriends are respectful and treat them well, we will get along. Story 29. I have a 17-year-old son. He has had a few girlfriends over the last couple of years. Most did not have fathers, which I thought was odd. The ones who did have a father, it was their stepfather, and they hated them with a passion. To my amazement, what I saw was the complete opposite of what you are describing. They did not have curfews and answered the door in underwear. His first girlfriend, once they made it official, wanted to hang out at the school park. We planned to meet at the park, and the mother pulled in, opened the door, and sped away before the daughter touched the sidewalk. The mother did not get out to introduce herself or even look at us. My wife and I just looked at each other. Took a month to find out who she was. We had to force a meeting. We found out the father was in jail, and the mother had 4 children while unemployed. She was going to college. The youngest was a baby only a few months old. After that relationship ended, my son dated for about 9 months. I honestly do not remember one girl with a father, maybe one. They all had issues with boundaries, and the immature conversations turned my son off. They were very flaky with bad communication. I wanted a lot of children, but the circumstances were not there for me. I only have a son, and I love him very much. Since he was about 9, I have spoken to him as a person and not as a child. We have open and honest conversations almost daily. He asks me real questions and we debate topics often. Story 30, woman here. I feel compelled to share that the father is usually a creep himself in this situation, which is a major red flag. This is not how good fathers or respectful men act or raise their daughters. Story 31, before I had a daughter, I always assumed it was projection. That those men have a low opinion of women and probably only saw them as something to be used. They are the kind of men who wear shirts that say, I have 2 rules. Don't touch my tools, don't touch my daughter. They assume every man is just as awful as they are. Now that I have a daughter, I know that it absolutely is a projection on their part. Those kinds of fathers are just terrible men assuming every man is as awful as they are. Story 32. I have boys and I notice it. This younger generation seems to be the most educated on equality and consent yet is treated like they are all sex-crazed predators looking to ruin their innocent young partners. Honestly, my oldest is probably the most respectful young man on the planet. And he is treated poorly by his girlfriend's parents. He has had 3, all the same. Men in my generation were pursuing relationships aggressively, like they were playing in the World Series. Aggressive as hell, yet we were at her father's barbecue on Sundays talking about cars. Story 33. Being an attractive man, I observe this often in subtle ways while walking around the city, usually when their daughter is a teenager. The father can recognize that not only do some men check out or creep on young girls, but their daughter might be staring at me too, which happens frequently. I think there is probably a range of reactions stemming from their recognition but also reluctance to consider their daughter's sexual autonomy, out of fear of understanding how harsh unwanted attention can be. To most fathers, their daughters never stop being their little girls, and they will always want to protect them. Story 34. I initially misread this post. You are absolutely right. I am very protective towards any perceived threat to my baby girls. My oldest is married and expecting. I expect my son-in-law to protect her, and if he does not, I will. I am on this planet for 2 reasons. Provide and protect. Story 35. Yes, many men consider their daughters their primary responsibility to defend, even more so than their wives. They see other men as a threat until proven otherwise. They do not want their daughters associating with anyone who could pose a risk to their present or future. These men are often conservative culturally and politically. More liberal fathers take the approach that they will not be around all the time, and their daughters will pull away. Therefore, their focus is teaching their daughters to identify and handle undesirable men and to demonstrate what a good man is. Story 36. As a mother, I understand the behavior because dating has become dangerous for women with the introduction of date rape drugs, the liberalization of premarital sex, and the decline of dating for the purpose of marriage. I can understand the anxiety associated with daughters dating, especially with online dating sites. Story 37. Do you mean physically aggressive or posturing? Are these other men his age or younger around his daughter's age? Story 38. Boys are not given guidelines for being decent adult humans. Dowry is still a practice in some parts of the world, and women are actively viewed as property. This viewpoint is easily accessible online and is making a comeback in the Western world with traditional wives. Boys are given examples to follow through interpretation, not conversation. Beyond that, evidence points to a lack of repercussions for white males who abuse women. For example, a judge might say, "Let's give Brock a chance this once. He seems like he might have a promising swimming career, and we're sure he won't do this again." As a white boy child, my parents never addressed behavioral issues unless something was broken, so it was up to me and my peers to judge and adjust bad behaviors. When these boys grow up and have daughters, of course they are going to behave erratically around unknown, unregulated males who have uncertain ideas about how to treat women. I see many helicopter moms behaving this way now about their sons too. It's all unpleasant. Story 39. I will preface this by saying that I am the father of teenage boys. I think aggressive is too strong of an adjective, but people definitely do treat young males with more caution and suspicion, especially when it comes to interactions with their teenage daughters. There is one very obvious reason for this. As a demographic, young males are by far the most dangerous. If you are going to be assaulted or murdered, it is more than likely going to be by a young male. That is just a reality of the world. You cannot ask people to ignore basic pattern recognition. Then there is the more vague concept of empathetic discrimination. I am questionable of young males and their decision-making capabilities because I was one. There were many times that I thought I was being a good, reasonable person when, in fact, I was not. I do not know a man over 35 who would not say, "Yes, I was basically a monkey when I was 20. There are exceptions to this, and if you prove yourself to be the exception, people will probably treat you that way. But people, in general, are going to treat you in a generalized fashion because that is the only functional way to live in the world. People want to shield their daughters from the pain caused by young male foolishness. I wish I could shield my sons from their own foolishness. My advice would be to have a little more self-sovereignty and stop being so sensitive." Story 40. Yes, I have definitely noticed this. It is called white knighting. All men want to see themselves as having integrity and being protectors of women. They also know they have potentially negative thoughts, which they project onto other, usually younger, men. A small subset of these men hope that women see their efforts and will reward them. So it is not just virtue signaling. It is also performative. For the record, this behavior rarely gets them laid. Story 41. As long as there have been men, there have been fathers issuing threats regarding their daughters. So it has always been, so it is, and so it shall be. Story 42. Because men know the behaviors and attitudes they exhibit towards women are harmful and predatory, and they are fine with other females being victims, but believe their daughters should be exempt, more so than every other woman. Additionally, society tends to place an emphasis on the purity of virginity. There are many reasons for this, the least troubling of which is the fact that realistically, if a teenage girl gets pregnant by her teenage boyfriend, she is the one stuck carrying the burden of it, while there is no real way to hold him as accountable as her. Regardless, if my son comes home and says his girlfriend's father threatened him, I am going to release a great deal of repressed anger on that man. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.